never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Steve, and I'm 42. I've been married to Lisa for about 15 years now, and honestly, I thought we had a solid, normal life. Two kids, a decent house, the kind of relationship people usually post about when they're happy. But somewhere along the way, I started sensing that something was off. Small things, you know. Little hints that maybe Lisa wasn't fully present anymore. She's always been a bit bitchy, honestly. Not in a mean way, but she's sharp, quick to cut off conversations she doesn't want to hear, and she's got this way of lying that's almost natural for her. She's always been good at hiding things, too. I mean, she's a master of deflecting, making her seem innocent even when she's not. I'd catch her sneaking around on her phone more often, deleting texts, or suddenly being too busy to talk in the evenings. But I brushed it off for a long time, telling myself I was just paranoid. Maybe work stress or just my imagination. Our family vacations were a tradition. Every summer, we'd pack up and head to a lakeside cabin with her brother and sister-in-law and their kids. We did it for 16 years straight. It was our thing, our annual escape. That's why I couldn't believe it when last summer I saw her texting someone while I was outside with the kids. She was quick to hide the screen, but I caught a glimpse of the message. It was just a "Hey, can't wait to see you," followed by a winky emoji. That's when I felt that weird sinking feeling like something had shifted in my gut. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I waited. But over the next few months, the signs kept piling up. She became more defensive when I asked questions, and her stories didn't always match up. One night, I found her phone lying face down on the kitchen counter, and I couldn't help myself. I picked it up. Her notifications had a message from someone named Mark. "Just can't wait to see you tonight," and a heart. That was the moment I knew I was right, she was cheating. The realization hit me like a punch in the gut, and I felt numb. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to gather my thoughts, process what was happening. But I knew one thing: I couldn't ignore it anymore. The woman I'd trusted, the woman I loved, had been lying to me and sneaking around with her college buddy, Mark, her best man and the godfather to our kids. The same guy we took family vacations with every year. I still remember how she flirted with him during those trips, but I always told myself it was just friendly banter. Now I see it was something else entirely. Seeing that message was just the beginning. It was the first clear sign that everything I believed in, everything I thought we had, was crumbling. And it wasn't just a little fling. This had been going on for probably months, maybe longer. The worst part: she's been lying through her teeth whenever I brought up her behavior. She insists she's innocent, that I'm overreacting, that it's just sex with Mark, nothing more. But I know better now. It's not just about sex. It's about betrayal, about trust broken in the worst way possible. I kept replaying every moment: her dismissive attitude, her secretive phone habits, the way she'd suddenly be too busy when I wanted to talk. All the signs were there, but I'd been too blind or too afraid to see them clearly. Now I'm faced with the truth, and it's a brutal blow. I don't even know how I'm supposed to move forward from this. That's what I'm trying to figure out now. What's next for me, for my kids, for everything I thought was real? After I found the message from Mark, everything else in my life felt like it was crashing down around me. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and for days I just kept going over everything in my head. The fact that Lisa, had been lying all this time, that she'd been sneaking around with her college buddy during our family vacations, just made my skin crawl. I felt sick, angry, betrayed, like I'd been duped by the person I trusted most in this world. I didn't want to just confront her blindly. I needed proof, something concrete, so I started digging. I checked her emails, her texts, her social media. It was a cesspool of lies. I found messages not just from Mark, but other guys too. Some were innocent, sure, but the obsession, the timing, the secrecy, it all pointed to something much deeper. Lisa was actively hiding a secret life, and I was just a fool for not seeing it sooner. One night I decided to confront her. I waited until she was in the bathroom and I took her phone. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed to see the full scope. I went through her messages, her photos, the call logs. I found countless texts with Mark, flirty, suggestive, sometimes downright explicit. The kind of stuff that made my stomach turn. I saw that she'd met him secretly several times, always when I was supposedly working late or out with the kids. She'd even gone as far as to lie about her whereabouts, claiming she was at the grocery store or running errands while she was really with him. When I finally confronted her, her reaction was more infuriating than I expected. She looked at me with that typical bitchy smirk and said, "Oh, so you went through my phone, really? You're so insecure." Her voice was dripping with contempt. Then she added, "It's just sex, Steve. We're not married to our bodies, you know. I needed someone to make me feel alive." Shrugged like it was no big deal, like I should just accept it. I couldn't believe her. I was furious, but mostly I just felt a deep sadness. This wasn't some stupid flirtation. It was a full-blown affair, hiding in plain sight. I don't remember exactly what I said back, but I do remember feeling like I'd been punched in the chest. My mind was racing. How long had this been going on? Was it just for sex, or was there something more? And most of all, how could she be so cold about it? I was supposed to be her husband, her partner, the father of her kids, and she was out there screwing her college buddy behind my back. That's what broke me the most, her complete lack of remorse, her casual attitude about something so devastating. In the days that followed, I felt like I was living in some kind of nightmare. I avoided her, couldn't look her in the eyes, and every time I saw her smirk or shrugged, I wanted to scream. Meanwhile, she kept insisting she was innocent, that I was overreacting, that it was just sex with Mark, and it didn't mean anything. She said I was paranoid, that I was insecure, that I was imagining things. I couldn't even respond anymore. I just stared at her like she was a stranger. How did we get here? How did I end up in this mess, trusting someone who clearly didn't deserve that trust? I kept asking myself if I should just leave, if I could forgive her somehow, but honestly, I felt hollow. The idea of staying, knowing she'd lied and cheated, made me feel sick. But part of me still loved her, or at least wanted to believe I did. I kept wondering if I was just throwing away what we had over a stupid mistake, or if this was proof that she was not the woman I thought I knew. I mean, I'd always been the guy who tried to keep everything calm and rational. But now, I just felt rage boiling inside me. I was furious at her, at Mark, at myself for missing the signs. And I knew I had to figure out how to handle this, how to pick up the pieces of a life that was shattered beyond recognition. That night, after I basically lost my mind confronting her and digging through her phone, I couldn't sleep. The images kept flashing in my mind, her smiling with Mark, her lying to my face, the betrayal. I kept asking myself how she could be so cold, so indifferent to what she'd done. The woman I married, the mother of my children, was out there sleeping with her college buddy, and she was acting like it was no big deal. That's what cut the deepest, her utter lack of remorse or even regret. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what. Part of me thought about just walking out, grabbing the kids, and never looking back. Another part was desperately trying to hold on, to save what little was left of the life I'd built. But I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore or pretend it was just a misunderstanding. I was done being blind. The trust was gone, shredded into tiny pieces. So I sat her down the next morning, told her I knew everything. Her reaction was instant. She looked at me with those cold, bitchy eyes and said, "You're overreacting. It's just sex. It's nothing serious. You're making a big deal out of nothing." That's when I realized her smirk was her armor, her way of dismissing what she'd done, making me doubt myself. I felt my blood pressure spike and I almost lost my temper. But I stayed calm, barely, because I knew that's what she wanted, a reaction. I told her she could spin her lies all she wanted, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I remember feeling this mixture of heartbreak and rage. My hands trembled as I looked at her. How could she be so callous? How could she dismiss the fact that she'd been sleeping around, lying to me, betraying everything we had? I was so angry I wanted to shout, to cry, to do something destructive, but I just sat there trying to keep my composure. It was like I was trying to hold the pieces of my shattered heart together with tape. Her excuse. She said she was bored, that I'd been distant and inattentive, that she needed excitement. She accused me of being controlling, insecure, and said she only did it to feel alive. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The woman I thought I knew, the woman who'd always been the perfect wife and mother, suddenly turned into this cold, manipulative liar. And she was so convincing, so dismissive, like I was overreacting to some petty mistake. But I knew better. I knew this was years of lies, years of hiding the truth, and I felt like I'd been living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I told her she had to choose. Either she cut contact with Mark and we tried to work this out, or I was done. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to say, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I wanted to believe she'd choose us, that she'd realize what she'd lost, but honestly I wasn't sure she even cared. The look she shot me then, that dismissive smirk, made me realize I was dealing with a woman who had no respect for me anymore, if she ever did. It was like I was just some fool she'd been stringing along while she chased her thrill. That morning marked the beginning of the end, I think. I spent most of the day staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what I'd just heard. My mind was racing. Part of me wanted to fight for us to fix what was broken, but another part, deep down, knew it was probably too late. I felt this terrible heaviness, like I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. I never thought I'd be the guy this happened to. Everything I believed in, everything I worked for was suddenly a lie. And the worst part was, I still loved her, still wanted to save us, but I also knew I couldn't keep pretending things weren't broken beyond repair. That was the moment I realized I had to decide whether to fight for the marriage or let it all go. The pain was almost physical. It felt like I'd been punched so hard I couldn't breathe. But I also knew I had to be honest with myself. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about the betrayal of every promise, every vow we ever made. And honestly, I didn't know if I was strong enough to forgive her. Not now, not after what I'd uncovered. In the days that followed, I felt like I was living in some kind of fog. Every time I looked at Lisa, I saw her differently. No longer the woman I loved, but someone I barely recognized. She kept trying to brush things off, acting like I was overreacting, calling me paranoid or insecure, like I was the one betraying her. I couldn't even argue with her anymore because I was just too exhausted. It was clear she thought she was untouchable, that she could dismiss me and do whatever she wanted. That realization hurt more than I can put into words. I started to question everything. Were those family vacations a lie? Did she ever love me? Or was I just a trophy, a guy she married out of convenience? The fact that she kept lying, twisting the story, made my head spin. Tell me she was just bored, that she needed excitement, that she never meant for it to go this far. She insisted it was only sex, that she didn't love Mark, but honestly, it all sounded hollow. Her words, her excuses, they were just that, excuses, justifications for her cheating. One night after she went to bed early, I stayed up till dawn scrolling through her phone again. I needed more proof, something concrete to make her see that I wasn't just imagining things. That's when I found the messages from Mark, the photos, the late-night chats. It was clear they'd been hiding a relationship for months. I felt this terrible mixture of anger and heartbreak. How could she do this to us, to our kids, to the life we built? I kept asking myself if I was strong enough to handle all of it, if I should just walk away. I decided I couldn't stay silent anymore. I needed to confront her again, face her head on. I woke her up early the next morning and I told her I knew everything. Her reaction was immediate. She looked at me with that same bitchy smirk, like I was just a fool for believing in her. She said, "You're making a big deal out of nothing. It's just sex. It doesn't mean anything." That's when I snapped. I told her she was full of shit, that I saw everything, that I knew she'd been lying for months. I told her I was done trusting her. She rolled her eyes, scoffing, and said, "You're so insecure. You think I'm the problem. Maybe you're the one who's boring and uninteresting. Maybe I needed someone who could keep up with me." Her words stung worse than anything else. She was blaming me, saying I was the reason she cheated, like I was the bad guy. It was her way of avoiding responsibility, her way of making me feel guilty for catching her. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew I was dealing with someone who had no respect for me or our marriage. I told her she had to choose. Either she cut all ties with Mark and committed to fixing things, or I was leaving. I couldn't live in this limbo anymore. I was tired of feeling like I was going crazy, tired of feeling betrayed and used. Her face darkened and she said, "Fine, whatever you want, I don't care anymore." That sentence hit me like a punch to the stomach, because I realized then she had already checked out. She didn't care about us, about the kids, or about fixing anything. She just wanted to keep doing what she was doing, and I was just in her way. That day, I made my decision. I couldn't stay in a marriage where I was constantly lied to and disrespected. I knew I had to get out, for my sanity. For my kid's sake. I told her I'd be leaving soon, that I needed some space to think. She didn't argue, didn't try to stop me. She just shrugged and went on with her day like nothing had happened. It was terrifying and liberating all at once. I felt like I'd been given the chance to finally breathe again, but also like I'd lost the person I'd sworn to spend my life with. Looking back now, I realize how deep the betrayal runs. Trust, once broken, isn't so easily repaired. But at the same time, I've learned something crucial. Sometimes you have to face the truth, no matter how painful, and make the hard choices. The pain of discovery, of knowing your wife was unfaithful with her best man, the one person she was supposed to trust the most, is a wound that doesn't heal overnight. But it does teach you what really matters: honesty, respect, and loyalty. And I know now that I won't be settling for anything less. After making the decision to leave, I felt a strange mix of relief and devastation. It was like finally breathing after holding my breath for too long. But at the same time, I was grieving for a marriage I thought was unbreakable, for a future I'd envisioned that was now shattered into tiny pieces. The house felt colder, emptier without her presence, and every corner seemed to echo with memories of happier times. But I knew staying would mean living in a lie, and I refused to do that anymore. The hardest part was telling the kids. They're only 8 and 10, and I didn't want to burden them with all this adult drama. Still, I knew they deserved honesty. So I sat them down one evening, took a deep breath, and explained that Mommy and I were going to live apart for a while. I told them that adults sometimes make mistakes, but that I loved them more than anything and that they'd be okay. They didn't fully understand, but I saw the confusion and sadness in their eyes. That's when I realized how much damage had already been done, how much trust had been broken, and how much I had to shield them from the worst of it. The days that followed were a blur. I moved into a small apartment nearby, trying to keep everything as normal as possible. For the kids, I kept working, kept showing up for them, but inside I was a mess. I'd catch myself staring out the window, wondering how Lisa was doing, probably with Mark, I thought bitterly. I wondered if she'd miss us, if she'd ever regret what she'd done. And I wondered if I'd ever be able to trust again, or if I'd spend my life looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next betrayal. Somewhere deep down, I knew I had to focus on myself and my kids. I started therapy just to process everything. I needed to understand how I'd let things get this bad, how I'd missed the signs, and how I could move forward. The therapist told me I was doing the right thing, breaking free from a toxic situation, even if it hurt. She encouraged me to rebuild my confidence, to focus on what I deserved, and to remember that I wasn't at fault for her choices. That was hard to accept at first. I kept thinking I should have done more, been better, tried harder to fix what was broken. But I also knew that some things can't be fixed if the other person isn't willing. Throughout this process, I made a conscious decision not to let her define me anymore. I refused to be the victim of her lies and betrayal. I started focusing on my health, my work, and my relationship with the kids. Slowly, I found moments of peace, small victories where I felt like I was reclaiming some part of myself. But every so often, I'd get hit with waves of anger or sadness. It's like grief, but more complicated because it's about betrayal from someone you loved and trusted. Looking back, I realized that this experience has changed me forever. I learned how fragile trust is, how quickly things can fall apart, and how important it is to listen to your gut. I also learned that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself and your kids is to walk away from a toxic situation, no matter how painful it is. I don't have all the answers yet. This is a long road, and I still get moments where I question everything. But I know one thing for sure: I will rebuild. I will learn to trust again, but only with someone who is worthy of that trust. And I will never, ever ignore the signs of betrayal again. For anyone out there dealing with something similar, just know you're not alone. It hurts, it's ugly, and sometimes it feels impossible. But eventually you find your footing again. You learn your worth. And best of all, you learn that no matter how deep the betrayal, you can survive it. You can come out stronger on the other side. Now, sitting here in my quiet apartment, I reflect on everything that's happened. It's been a brutal ride, no doubt about it. I won't lie, there are still nights when I lie awake wondering how I missed so many signs, how I let her get away with everything for so long. But I also know that I've come a long way in accepting what happened. I've realized that trusting someone, truly trusting them, is a risk. And sometimes, that risk isn't worth it if it means losing yourself. What's been hardest is finding a way to forgive, not her, not Mark, but myself. Forgiving myself for staying so long, for not seeing the warning signs, for not protecting my own heart. But I've learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting or excusing. It's about acknowledging the pain, learning from it, and choosing to move forward with more wisdom. I've also learned that life is unpredictable and that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you can start climbing again. My relationship with the kids has become even more precious during this time. We're slowly rebuilding what was lost: trust, stability, the feeling of safety. They're resilient, more than I ever imagined, and I want to be the kind of father they can rely on, no matter what. They're the reason I get up every morning, the reason I keep fighting through the pain. Every day, I remind myself that I deserve happiness and respect, just like everyone else. And I owe it to myself and to them to create a future that's honest, safe, and filled with love, something these betrayals can't take away. Looking back, I realize that this whole experience has been a kind of wake-up call. It's forced me to reevaluate what I want from life, from a partner, from myself. I now understand that I don't want to settle for someone who lies and cheats and dismisses me like I'm nothing. I want real honesty, loyalty, and respect, and I'll never ignore the warning signs again. 2. Anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, just know it's okay to feel broken. It's okay to be angry and hurt, but don't let that pain define you. You're stronger than you think. You're worth more than the betrayal and lies. And no matter how dark things seem, there's always a way out. Sometimes the only way to find yourself again is to walk away from what's toxic and start building from scratch. I've learned that life doesn't come with guarantees. People will hurt you, betray you, and sometimes they'll even lie to your face. But in the end, you have the power to choose how to respond. You can rebuild, you can forgive, or you can walk away and find a new path. I'm still figuring out mine, but I know one thing for sure: I'm done being a victim. I'm done accepting less than I deserve. And I refuse to let someone else's betrayal destroy my hope for a better, honest life. This isn't the ending I imagined, but it's the beginning of something new. And honestly, that's okay, because sometimes losing everything is the only way to truly find yourself again.